Consumer inflation is at its highest in 4 months. However, it remains below the midpoint of the Reserve Bank's target bracket, indicative that inflation remains contained. Food price inflation rose to the highest level in 16 months at 4.7% in June, up from 4.4% in May. Prices of fruits and nuts, vegetables and hot beverages remain elevated. The prices of meat, in particular beef, processed foods and oil and fats, also remain high. Agricultural economist Wandile Sihlobo says the outbreak of animal diseases could be to blame for the price increases in the meat category. Avian flu in Brazil and foot and mouth disease here at home.
At some point over the past few months, we saw that Brazil, which is one of the key suppliers of poultry products into South Africa, had avian influenza, and that led to a temporary ban of Brazilian poultry products into South Africa. That caused a little bit of anxiety in the market as people were worried about the supplies. The second aspect is the foot and mouth disease, which also caused a little bit of a panic in the market, and I think that led to some form of a panic buying. But both of those factors are now somewhat well managed. For example, South Africa has resumed the imports of poultry products from Brazil. We see the major feedlots have started slaughtering, and every time when we are struggling with foot and mouth disease, we are usually restricted from exporting the red meat. And that restriction in exports, over time, it leads to an increase in the red meat supplies in the South African market. And that may lead to a softening of the meat prices in the coming months.
The relatively low consumer inflation level leaves the door open for the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank to cut rates. Economists expect a 25 basis points cut at next week's meeting.
After falling below the Reserve Bank's 3 to 6% target range for 3 consecutive months, consumer inflation re-entered the target band as we expected in June this year. Inflation remains quite low, and this provides support for consumer spending given that most wage increases are higher than this low prevailing rate of inflation. It also arguably provides support for the Reserve Bank to be able to cut interest rates again at the upcoming MPC meeting next week. However, we do expect inflation to trend higher in the coming months, which would reduce this tailwind for consumers.
Food price inflation is expected to moderate in the coming months. Sihlobo says this is as a result of good grains and fruit harvests. He says meat prices should also ease as supplies recover. Gloria Sefakomusi, SABC News, Johannesburg.